Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the CCN News Media on Point.
Good
And
evening.
this evening, we're on point with Mr. Frederick Collins, who's running for mayor of Chicago in the upcoming election. And I just like to welcome him to the show and to say to each of you that are in our viewing audience, welcome as well. And I'd like to take just a moment for Rose, introduce yourself, and then Jared, tell us who you are. And then we're going to come back to our candidate and let him tell us a little bit about himself. Rose?
Hi, Rose Anthony, retired City of Chicago worker. That's all I can say. Department of
All right, Rose. And
Yes.
thank you so much for coming on. And Jared, tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Gerald Thomas. I am with Mr. Frederick Collins. I'm his Director of Media Relations.
Oh, so pleased to meet you. How are you this evening?
Welcome.
Yes, I am doing well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Oh, great,
Thank you
great.
for having us.
Oh, absolutely. And so now, Mr. Collins, please just take your time and tell us a little bit about yourself. And I'm gonna let my cohort in, Miss Sandra Campbell, who's another reporter for the Chicago Communicated News Media. And welcome to the show, Sandra. We're asking Mr. Collins to tell us a little bit about himself.
Well, good evening to everyone.
Good
And I
evening.
want to thank you again for having us on your show. I appreciate it.
All right.
And to give you a little insight into myself, I was born and raised on the greater west side of Chicago in the Henry Horner Projects, where I was raised by my mother and father there and learned basic values of life, but a lot about our people and about family and about community
Yes.
and about faith. And one of the things that was just drummed into me all the time was our faith and our community.
Mm-hmm.
And so back then, as little children, we would go and see relatives and neighbors and stuff. But we had a block club meeting, they would call it. And block club meetings were always fun because it's when everybody came out and everybody bought something like a potluck, a meal or whatever during the summer. And we would all get together and you would meet your neighbors and different things and have fun. And it was just a real emphasis on togetherness. And
Yes.
that's something that we're kind of missing today, is being together and understanding the importance of community and family.
Yes.
Uh, Later on, I'm also a graduate of Richard T. Crane High School,
Ah.
where I attended school. Mighty, mighty Cougars out there. And yeah, and went to William H. Brown Elementary School.
All right.
And shortly after graduating from high school, I worked at what is now called Rush University. I worked at Rush Hospital for
Oh.
for a short time. Um, but while growing up in my teenage years in high school, uh, I got involved in community service. And I didn't know I was getting involved in community service. I just saw it as a way to be traveling with my grandfather out there and my father, who were involved in community service as far as dealing with organizations that had block clubs that would have meetings at least once a month. And they would talk about things that they could do in the community to keep it safe, to help out families that were struggling, to bring churches that were involved in the community, to bring other vital resources. And so we would go around, on the weekends, and we thought it was cute, me and my cousins and us, because we were little kids, and we would, go and cut grass and rake lawns and different things like that. And we wouldn't just do our own; we would do our neighbors,
Mhm.
and go out through the community, pick up cans and different things, put them in plastic bags, recycle and stuff. And my grandfather would give us like $10 for that day. So that was like $10 to run to the candy store, the
And go
neighborhood
get
candy
some
store.
candy. Yes.
Yeah, so you had lemon heads and all that, and Boston baked beans and all that. So I grew up learning a lot about our community and how important it was to help one another, to be involved. And they would have meetings because my grandfather was a Mason.
Oh,
And he belonged to the Masonic order. And so that those guys would have meetings at his house in his basement once a month.
okay.
And I always wondered where these men going with these suits on. You know, what are they talking about? You know, as I was real young and getting in my teenage years, I started wanting to know, hey, what are you doing down there? And I was told you, you're too young. You don't need to know right now. But it never stopped me from wanting to know, because you know, when you tell a kid, you know, hey, you don't need to know, they're going to want to try to find out.
Of course. That's when they really want to know. Now, look, I know that Sandra and Lavette and Rose have some questions about your experience in the community as a police officer and some of the values you're going to bring to this office that you're running for. Sandra, introduce yourself to Mr. Collins and ask your question.
Good evening, Mr. Collins. I'm
Good
going to
evening.
be nice to Wanda for making me first. Since I won't just take a shot at her. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh. I am retired federal civil rights officer. I've done a lot of community stuff. I was the beat facilitator for about 15 years, from the inception until 2015. We were actually part of the pilot program. I used to live on the southwest side of Chicago. And I worked with and was a precinct captain for Alderman Shirley Coleman, worked with Ed Burke, Dan Burke, worked with Joanne Thompson. So then did some things around and about with Chicago and different stuff. I really don't want to know about what you did as a police officer. I did read your bio, but I am glad that I saw that you were very involved, and I see some of the things you want to do for the city. I was going to ask you later, once you got a chance to really talk more about it, I was going to ask you, in the current climate now, once you are mayor, what will you do, or have you come up with a plan to not only ease the minds of Chicagoans as we go forward, but also whatever you can do with working with trying to keep as many programs in place, you know, what kind of committees you may be willing to have developed during this time for these next 3 years. I mean, how do you see, and by the time the election comes about, it'll be 2 years, what do you see your contribution, additional contributions to the city of Chicago as we get through the last 2 years of 47? You know, I was going to ask you something like that because I see that you've already addressed a lot of the current situations that were kind of, you know, looming over our heads before we started dealing with this mess at the end of January. And I just wanted to see, because you didn't mention that, which is cool. I don't think you should have that necessarily in your flyer, but I was going to ask you, in this intimate setting, you know, if you had even thought about any kind of plans for the way forward under this current presidential administration. So that was it.
Well, you know, I'm a firm believer in God's word, one, and that is charity begins at home. And so we've got to take care of home first. And under this current presidential administration, that I would use the mayor's office as a bully pulpit to connect with our senators and state reps, because that's what we pay them for. We pay them a lot of money, and they need to do their job. It's just like my mechanic I pay to keep my car running. I'm not going to ask the people that manufactured the car. I'm going to ask the dealership where I take it to make sure that they get the job done right. But what we can do is we can do for self. And what I mean by that is I have a plan and a strategy that I know will work because I've done it in the community. And that is making sure that we hold those accountable, but not only hold those accountable, but be responsive to making sure that they do exactly what we pay them to do. And when they don't do it, stop reelecting them. But hold them accountable. And there are ways to do that. We know, number one, we have to be educated and mindful of what our rights are and act upon those constitutional rights to ensure that those things are done. And so as the next mayor of the city of Chicago under Doug Collins' administration, what you will see is policies that I will put forward that represent and advocate for us, the people. My administration won't be telling the people what to do. My administration will be working on behalf of the people. I will be your representative. That's why I am doing the interview to become your next mayor. I want that job to represent you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Lavette, you have a question for candidate Collins?
Not right now. I'll pass. I'll come back.
Okay. So let's go over some of the things you said you want to change once you become the mayor. And then I'm sure that others will have some comments or some questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Tell us one of the changes that you wanted to make. I have to pull that up.
Well, I think one of the major changes that we're going to make is bringing back law and order.
Law and order, okay.
Because no society can survive without law and order. You need boundaries to protect our seniors, to protect our community, to protect our children. We have to set boundaries under the Constitution that make it safe and provide hope for people to feel safe, as well as to live the quality of life that allows them to hope and look towards a brighter future. And so I'm going to implement policies such as zero tolerance when it comes to our curfews. And what you always hear from politicians, and I'm not a politician, I'm a public servant. That's what I've done all my life for the last 34 years, is what you got to do is implement those policies and those laws that are already on the books. But at the same time, be involved in a listening ear and implement the changes that the community wants. And what they want to see is safe avenues and safe places in which to raise their families, go to work, attend church, and grow a business. And so when I say zero tolerance when it comes to our curfew laws, I mean, we're going to hold those accountable. The first time we pick up your child, we're going to get an event number and we're going to bring them home for you free of charge.
Okay.
That's what we're going to do, and let the parent know and have them sign. This is the first time. But the second time it happens, what we're going to do is we're going to involve cities, we're going to involve family services, and we have to, because there are a lot more young parents than there have ever been in any generation, and some of them need help.
Yes.
And that's what it's for. It's not to victimize or anything. It is to help them, because they may need help, or there may be something going on in the home in which the child doesn't want to be at home, or
that makes
maybe
sense.
the parent has too much on them and needs help. So we're going to provide those services right off the back the second time. If there is a third time, then what we're going to do, we're going to have to bring them in on a court date, and we're going to hold those parents accountable again. We have to get the parents involved.
That's right.
You and I only see that child when they're out, but somewhere that child is laying their head. They're being fed, they're being clothed, and they're being housed. And that's where we have to make sure the most oversee for those children is happening at.
Makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. I'd like to take just a moment to welcome a couple other people on the show. Miss Jennifer Edwards, how are you? Welcome to the show. Jennifer? I think how are you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Thanks for referring the gentleman to us. And introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, and then you can tell us why you thought it necessary for us to interview this gentleman.
Well, I've known Mr. Collins for several years. I don't even know how far back we go. Then I'd be telling my age, and I don't want to do that. But I think he's got some great ideas. So I thought he would be good to come and start talking to some people in our areas, to see what what he has to say. I got someone called me today. These survey people called, and they were really about the elections coming up and the different people, you know, like Dick Durbin is not running, and all these people that are jumping into that race. And then they wanted to know about, you know, how we felt about the mayor and my alderman. And I couldn't really say anything as favorable about him because I don't agree with a lot of the things that he's saying and doing.
Okay.
And so anyway, that's, you know, I don't want to take on everything, but we are doing, our group is Communities Organized to Win, and we're part of Operation Neighborhood Safety. So we are working a lot with the Chicago Police Department and trying to get it so that the community does work with the police and we can take the handcuffs off of the police so that they can do some more things and stop some of this stuff that's going on. You know, I talked with third district officer today, and she was saying that they stole her police car.
Oh my goodness.
uh,
They stole her
and
police car?
yep, and they
Oh, it
found it.
happens.
Yeah,
It
and they
happens.
found it. And then they said that when they had this event on 75th Street, they smashed the commander's police car, you know. So, and they believe these are young kids that are doing these things, you know. So, and they found it, you know, they found these
Wow.
things. So it's just interesting.
Yeah.
They also talked about at the gas station, not the gas station, the um, McDonald's on 65th and Stony, about 30 young kids came out of school. I guess that was Hyde Park, and were fighting and took over that whole area this afternoon. And so
Whoa.
she was, how'd you hear about it? I said, well, you know, I'm on the Citizen app, and I hear about those things. And, you know, it pops up, and one of the officers, the district coordinating officer that we have, called the lieutenant while we were on the phone and said, well, what can we do? And I remember our group going to that gas station, maybe a year or so ago, and I was standing with a couple of the officers that I knew at the time, and we would not let the students any more than one or two come in at one time because they're so disruptive.
Okay.
So we haven't done that lately, but these are the things that we have to do to get involved. So I think Mr. Collins wants to do these types of things after being a police officer and, you know, probably having a heavy hand at times when they probably didn't want him to have that, but that's what
Yeah,
we need, you know?
I agree. I agree.
So,
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that information.
yeah.
And look, if she just gave you a key to the door, you know, so tell us what would you do? What I mean, what how would you handle that situation?
Well, you know, my grandmother used to say, tough times sometimes call for tough love
That's right.
because it's still love, but it's going to be tough to get through.
Come on now. Okay, we got Dr. Treadwell. How are you, sir?
I am well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. Tell us a little bit about yourself and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm
Absolutely.
Apostle Timothy A. Treadwell, Senior Pastor of Performing Christ Ministries, located on 5209 West on Lake Street. I am also a part of uh, Frederick Collins' campaign group,
Thank you.
and I'm just excited to be on. And I'm just here to support. I know all about the agenda. I think it's absolutely fabulous. And I wouldn't be supporting him if it wasn't good. If I didn't trust not just the plan or the platform, uh, but because of who he is as a person matters more than anything else. Because you can have a, a, a a bad person with a good plan, I'm not going to follow you because you're a bad person. Like our president, he's a
Yeah.
bad person. You follow me? But if you got a good person with a bad plan, we can talk through it to make it a better plan. Does
All
that make
right.
sense?
I got
So I care about your character and your sincerity about the work you're trying to do. And I have not come across a person that's better suited for the city of Chicago to lead it as mayor than Mr. Frederick Collins.
wow. Now that says a lot, Mr. Collins. You have people that support you. and they know your work, and that's why they're right here beside you. Thank you so much for that input. We appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I see we have Miss Margot Richmond on the phone. Welcome to the show, Margot. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm excited about a new opportunity for a new mayor to present themselves. I only have one thing to say. If for you to consider, it's really, really understanding subsidized housing and how it is operated. And even when it comes down to social service programs that are responsible for renting, leasing homes and apartment buildings without supervision, and young people being able to get their own apartments, but don't have enough formal training to be able to mandate what they're supposed to do. As an example, a high-rise building that may have 8 high-rise buildings that's owned and managed by a management company. HUD's program is not being followed, because what happens is if you move a young person, 21 years old, with 3 children into a 3-bedroom apartment, he brings in several people outside of that lease. They're renting these units, and in the community, there is not enough places available for these young people to go in and sit down, play bingo, play chess, play whatever, just community. We got so many vacant stores. So they have no other choice but to stand out in front of the buildings or stand on the side of the buildings or walk constantly back and forth up and down the street until somebody gets in trouble. That is throughout the city of Chicago, where there's high-rise buildings, where they are monitored like, what do they call it, HRDI, all of these various different programs. They are not linked to facilities that can take them, that can motivate them. You can't make them all come off the street, but if you see them grouped 5, 6, 7 at a time throughout regular communities, that's what causes a lot of problems. There's no place to go. I beg the aldermen on 71st Street, 79th Street, all of these places, 6 flat buildings, 36 unit buildings, are housed, and the landlords are being paid by these organizations, but there's no place for these people to go. So that's all I have to say is that consider that community by community. You see the groups, that's because they came out of that 18 unit building. They're tired of sitting in there. There's nothing inside of there, no programs that's in the community. So they walk and stand in front of stores, or they stand outside of gas stations. Nothing for them to do. So if you can pay their rent, if you can give them the free link, then they should be held accountable for them going into a program. Why give them all of this free stuff and they won't go to school or won't go to a program, but they stand outside, and the elders and the seniors are scared to come out and go to grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
So do the best you can. I'm rooting for you.
Well, thank you so much. What you just said is what we all know. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running for mayor, is because I care about my family, my community, and this city and its citizens. I've spent over 30 years on the front line, on the streets. I wasn't in an office desk or anything. I was out there answering the emergency calls. I was out there viewing the teens as they would not go to school, and I would grab them and take them to school. So they got to know me real well. But also, here's the most important thing. We've got to make sure that resources that go to everybody else have to come to us as well. And that means we don't want a seat at the table. We want control of the kitchen. Because whoever has control of the kitchen will decide what is put on the plate at the table. And so under my administration, what you will find is not only will I be advocating what we're talking about today and implementing and proving a plan that I get it done, but how I pay for it. And I'll just give you one example. One of the examples is property taxes. And I'll tell you why. As the next mayor of the city of Chicago, we will eliminate property taxes in the city of Chicago.
Ooh,
boy.
Do you know?
That's a wonderful thing.
45% of our seniors and those buying homes lose their homes due to property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And they get nothing in return for paying property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
The school budget has gone up every year, while attendance in our public schools has gone down every year. And no one can explain it. In some of these schools, we've got more staff than we've got students. We've got schools that can hold 1,200 people, but there are only 100 students in there.
Oh,
That's
come on
because,
now.
that's because we have people in power that do not care. And it all starts at the mayor, it starts local, and then goes down to our aldermen, and then down to our committeemen. But yet, Chicago pulls in large streams of revenue, and the money is mismanaged and is stolen. Well,
Ooh.
anytime there's a theft, you always call the police. I'm going to take that police training into City Hall, and we're going to get rid of the thieves in there. We didn't just need to get rid of Burke. There's some more sitting in there that got to go.
Come on. We got a couple of people with their hands up, Miss Levette and then Jennifer. You got your mute on, Levette.
Good evening. I just had I wanted to sort of piggyback on what Margot was saying because that was my sentiment about young people. And I heard you say you would have a zero tolerance with curfew and stuff like that. But having a heavy hand with curfew without activity, they need to be off the street at a certain hour. But given the fact that they they need programs to participate in. I think that what has happened with some of the nonprofit organizations that receive money for programming, it goes to the top tier organizations, which have budgets of $1 million. Most of your grassroots nonprofits don't have that budget and wind up getting left out of the grant process. And so if you have, say, for instance, in East Garfield Park, you have about 200 nonprofit organizations, and most of them have very high budgets. But statistics say that the same problems exist. So we need to look at those nonprofit organizations and see what their success stories are with our children, because our children are a rare commodity and everybody's fighting for the child. So that means that they're fighting for the dollar that's associated with it. But what are the outcomes? And if the outcomes is that they're still going wild on the street, then what is the funding doing?
Come on.
So not only would I like to see some discipline with their behavior, but also some resources and resources given to those who have their boots on the ground with these young people. And most of the grants, if you look at them, it used to be like a one-page information sheet that you give as long as you were in good standing with the state, you had a positive bank account, you did a police background check. Those were very simple things. Now they have like 20 pages to fill out to get a grant.